Mustafa and I, when we first met, which was at a PwC training gig, I believe, in London, we were staggered to discuss, dare I say it, sounds terrible, how shortchanged the students were at the event from a course that we delivered. And the truth of it was there was nothing really wrong with the course, but there was a lot of lack of communication about or with us or who the students were going to be or even what they necessarily wanted. And it wasn't just, we could kind of deal with the confusion, if you like, because we're used to dealing with confused students, but the students were particularly confused, wondering why they were there, especially as being PwC staff. They were actually pretty smart people, very nice people too. There were issues anyway. We smoothed them out as best that we could. And this kind of thing happens often. But anyway, as things progressed, as we delivered the course, I think it was at FCCP, various questions occurred. And often the questions are about the course materials, and obviously they're fairly straightforward to handle. But as usual, there's a good crop of questions that were just really about implementation. In other words, this information about this SCCP course is, good, fine and dandy, but how do we actually use it in the field? So most of the issues had nothing to do with the course itself. The issues fell into these two camps: organization and what to do in the future. So we couldn't do much about the organization because we were kind of hired hands and brought in, but yeah, that could have run more smoothly. But we could certainly do something about helping with the future. We, as we always do our best to talk about how people handle the various issues in security in practice. And with something, the benefit of having live trainers in the room can honestly deliver. Because we've done it, we've been there. That's how we're able to facilitate these events. So definitely the students learned a lot. We got into conversations about implementation, but the conversation with Mustafa and I was relatively common because I find it that whenever there's a range of trainers available altogether, we're always talking about the kind of quality of the materials or quality of the event or quality of even the delegates and how they're going to use this kind of information. But we kind of decided, we came to a conclusion, if we didn't do anything further about this, then this was just going to remain a problem forever. So it was really, if not you, then who was kind of a tricky question. So we decided to do something about it, which eventually became ESORMA. But we were pretty excited about this prospect. And we said many times to each other as things progressed, but why has no one else ever done this before? It just seemed so obvious to us. But it then became apparent that we'd created a pretty mammoth task. I think you got up to a few thousand pages in mapping out a CBK, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So we kind of realized that, we can't be giving away a few thousand pages or even putting that out in an ordinary book. This is like too much to download on people. Plus, it's going to take us like 2 years to write the damn thing and so on. So maybe that was the reason no one had ever done it before. The job was actually too big. However, we did realize that we might be able to produce a cut down version. And that then turned into this thing, the Quick Start Guide. If you've seen it, it's less than 200 pages. It's as practical as we can make it whilst we're combining some of the theory still within it. And even that can be divided into 8 domains. So this presentation is about the first of those 8 domains, and we're going to try and give you or share 24 points or highlights on the first domain alone within this hour. So the objectives of ESORMA is to provide more secure environment for a business and to do so in a way that changes the narrative. This is one of our missions, if you like, from security being slow and for security being cost, to people being able to discuss security in terms of return on investment, where the benefits of for the business, for its customers, its clients, its partners, and of course, all of our colleagues. And those opportunities are really there. And we're going to be able to go through some of those opportunities as we go through some of the points today. So the point is with ESORMA is it's a practical conclusion, if you like. It's almost the next step. It's if you've done CISSP or SCCP or any of those things, CISM, there's 101 training courses on IT that are all about the theory, but it seems to us there's just a complete blank as to what to do about it in practice. In other words, it's like you passed the driving lesson, you've learnt the book, and now you're free to go on the open road in any direction that you want. And of course, everyone does. However, this is the same for security. So basically, a company hires a CISO or a security professional, and they think they've got it nailed. But we don't know, do we? Because if the expertise of that security professional is right up there in terms of technology, but they have no people skills, chances are that they'll be really good at locking down security and absolutely very poor at communicating to the team, the organization. Now, I'm not saying that always exists or occurs, but there probably is some inequality in that for different people. And as an employer, as a company, they don't necessarily know. All they're doing is hiring a security professional as a solution that does everything. But the question is, does it? So ESORMA lays out a specific set of processes that security professional can employ and can deploy or apply across the business. The side effects of enhanced security is better processes as well as enhanced security. So many organizations, processes have existed for such a long time. So for example, the Americans want to send new people to the moon, but the surprising sort of shock or surprise is the Americans can't be using Saturn V rockets anymore, even though they worked, even though they took people to the moon, even though they use the most powerful engines ever made, and even though they've got the blueprints. And the reason is that the people that made them, when they made them in the late 60s, early 70s, they had the blueprint, sure, but what they would do is in the machine room, they would apply processes, manual processes. This is the days before automation. And they would, not record necessarily all the changes and the filing or whatever they did to like shoehorn the bits and pieces together to make them engines. Okay, so all the subtle changes that occurred in the process of manufacture to get something to work, that information has just been lost. Some people have some of that information. They don't necessarily know why they do what they do, but they do what they do because it works. Okay, so this is the kind of example of processes that were employed, that did work, that still do work, but actually somewhere over time, we've lost the expertise. And this happens in lots of businesses. In other words, lots of businesses run lots of processes. And because of modernization and automation and time, things have changed. And so lots of the processes that were employed may not need to be employed today. So one of the things about security that we do is we examine processes. And in that process of examining a process, we're looking to assess risk. And we then decide based on a risk analysis where we will apply risk controls, which is all good, fair enough. And in that process, we may discover there's processes that we could change, steps that we could reduce, processes even that we could completely eliminate, because we suddenly come to the conclusion, why are we doing that? Why do we need to do that? So this is about, well, how do we start to do that? Where are those practical steps? And it starts with scope. All right, let's move on. That's basically pretty much why we've put ESORMA together, where we see an opportunity or a need. Scoping is very, very common. It's one of the things you do before, during, and after. You almost can't stop yourself from doing it. We've broken it down into 24 points. Any comments to add to that, Mustafa?
No, I think you've covered it quite well. It is for those coming into a role where they're now responsible for implementing cybersecurity. They may be taking over from someone else, or they may have to start from scratch. It might be a greenfield, which they're lucky if it is, because you have more scope to develop your program. But chances are there's already been some work done. What has been done, what hasn't been done, yeah, you're right. You have to start with scope. You have to find out where you are before you can go forward in anything, really. And that's why I think scope is the main one, and it is the central point of starting any cybersecurity project, program, or even architecture, depending what level you're doing this at. So over to you, Dave.